She lights up every room she enters, and somehow feels invisible in everyone she leaves. She is the woman people describe as magnetic, powerful, impossible to forget. And she goes home to silence so thick she can hear it. This is not a coincidence. This is a pattern. And the reason it keeps repeating is one most people will never understand, because they keep looking at the wrong thing. Everyone sees the warmth she radiates outward. Nobody asks what she does with the cold she carries inward. The more emotionally generous she is with the world, the more completely alone she becomes inside it. And the cruelest part of this pattern is not the loneliness itself. It is the fact that the very quality that draws everyone toward her is the same quality that keeps genuine connection just far enough out of reach that she stops believing it was ever meant for someone like her. The word magnetic sounds like a compliment. It is meant as one, but what it actually describes is a woman who has spent years learning how to give people exactly what they need to feel comfortable around her. She reads the room. She adjusts her energy. She knows what to say, when to say it, and how to hold space for someone else's pain without making it feel heavy. She does all of this so naturally, so effortlessly, that people assume it costs her nothing. It costs her everything. The magnetic woman did not become magnetic because she was born with a rare social gift. She became magnetic because somewhere early in her life, she learned that being emotionally available for others kept her safe. It kept people close. It protected her from a very specific kind of rejection, the kind that does not come from being disliked, but from being truly seen and still not chosen. So she made herself useful. She made herself warm. She made herself someone people want around. And she buried the version of herself that needs, quietly, completely, without apology, somewhere private enough that even she stopped visiting it regularly. Here is the thing nobody says out loud. When a woman becomes that skilled at being present for everyone else, people stop wondering whether anyone is being present for her. She becomes a place where others go to feel steady, and she is almost never given the same. She gives, beautifully, and without visible effort, and it never occurs to anyone around her that she might be running empty. The world sees abundance. She feels the absence. And this is the part most people completely miss. The loneliness that lives inside emotionally magnetic women is not the kind that comes from being surrounded by the wrong people. That kind of loneliness is painful, but it is relatively simple. You can name it, trace it, and eventually do something about it. The loneliness inside this kind of woman is far more complex, because it lives inside full rooms, inside long friendships, inside relationships that appear from every outside angle to be entirely real and entirely enough. She is surrounded, she is adored, and she is almost never truly known. The reason for this is not that the people around her are careless or shallow. It is that she has spent so long operating as the emotionally available one, giving so fluently, listening so deeply, creating warmth so effortlessly, that she has slowly, accidentally, trained the people in her life to receive from her without ever thinking to offer the same thing back. She became the safe place for everyone else. And safe places are not typically asked how they are doing. They are leaned on, they are needed, and they are assumed to be just fine. She is, in a very real sense, too good at this. Her emotional intelligence became a kind of invisible trap. The better she got at giving, the more invisible her own need became. Not because she hid it deliberately, but because she learned to move so gracefully through her own internal weather that no one around her could tell there was a storm inside. There is a specific psychological pattern underneath all of this that matters. When a woman grows up in an environment where love was conditional, where affection came most reliably when she was agreeable, calm, helpful, or emotionally easy to be around, her nervous system builds a very particular equation. It learns that safety comes from giving, that connection is something you earn through warmth and usefulness, that her worth in any relationship depends directly on what she provides within it, and the adult version of her becomes someone who is deeply, almost physically, uncomfortable receiving care, someone who deflects affection before it can land. Someone who hears "How are you really doing?" and answers from a place several layers above where she actually lives. Someone who could cry, if only she believed she was allowed to need something first. This is not weakness. It is a highly sophisticated emotional defense system that served her well when she was young and had no other tools. The problem is that it was never dismantled. It simply became the invisible architecture of how she moves through every relationship, automatically redirecting care before it gets close enough to ask anything real of her. Because the emotionally magnetic woman does not just struggle to receive care. She unconsciously arranges her life so that receiving care stays just out of reach. She gravitates toward people who need her, people whose emotional world is complicated enough that there is always something to pour herself into, people who are, in some way, emotionally unavailable in the same way she herself is unavailable. Because that particular flavor of distance feels like home, familiar, safe, and familiarity, for a nervous system that learned love through labor and emotional sacrifice, registers as something very close to comfort. But this is where it gets darker. The attachment dynamic this creates is one she rarely recognizes while she is inside it. She moves toward closeness, and then, at a certain threshold, one she cannot consciously name but has crossed in the same way many times before, she stops. She becomes suddenly busy. She creates small but effective emotional distance. She keeps intimacy at the level where it still feels manageable to her, which is the level just before it becomes truly real. Just before someone would be close enough to see past the warmth. Just before someone could reach the interior she has been quietly guarding for a very long time. She does not push people away. She simply never fully lets them in. And there is a quality of loneliness that lives right at that threshold. Not in the absence of connection, but in the moment she could choose connection, and her entire self quietly declines without her conscious permission. That is the specific ache inside emotionally magnetic women. Not that no one is there, but that she cannot let herself be reached even when someone genuinely tries. The cycle this creates is quietly devastating. She becomes lonelier over time, not because the world has abandoned her, but because she keeps choosing the version of connection that feels safe over the version that would actually reach her. She is aware of this. Sometimes, in the quiet moments before sleep, she feels it very clearly. And then morning comes, and the warmth switches back on, and the world sees the same magnetic woman it has always seen. And she carries the question no one thinks to ask her deeper into another year. For the woman in her 40s who recognizes this pattern, this did not arrive recently. It has compounded quietly across every significant relationship in her life, each one reinforcing the same foundational belief that she is loved and needed for what she offers, not for who she is in the moments when she has nothing left to offer. The exhaustion she carries is not just emotional. It is the exhaustion of decades of being the dependable one, the emotionally fluent one, the one other people lean on, while silently, privately hoping someone would notice she was carrying weight too. Most of the time, no one did. Not because they did not care about her, but because she never let the weight show clearly enough for anyone to feel they had permission to help carry it. The people who love her believe she is fine, because she has spent years learning to look fine. And the particular cruelty of this is that they are not wrong to believe it. She makes it true every single time. This is the architecture of her loneliness. Not the absence of people, the presence of people who only know the version of her she chose to let them see. Here is the uncomfortable truth this whole pattern builds toward. If something in this video has felt personally relevant, if you recognized yourself in any layer of what was just described, ask yourself this honestly. When was the last time you let someone take care of you without immediately calculating what you owed them in return? Not as an exchange, not as fair balance, but as a woman who simply allowed someone else's care to reach her without already planning how to give something back. If that question required real thought, that is not a small detail about you. That is the core of the entire pattern, and the fact that you are still watching means some part of you already knows it. This next part is the one that changes everything. The deepest loneliness emotionally magnetic women carry is not created by the absence of love. It is sustained by a belief, quiet, almost always unconscious, that the version of them people love is a curated version. The warm one, the present one, the one who shows up generously for others. And somewhere beneath that version lives a woman who is less composed, more uncertain, more afraid, and far more fully human than the one she presents to the world. She has protected that interior woman so effectively and for so long that she has nearly convinced herself the curated one is all she is, that the warmth is the wholeness. But she knows. On some level, she always knows. She knows it every time she comes home after an evening of being wonderful for everyone in the room and sits alone in a silence that feels heavier than it should. She knows it when someone tells her how strong she is and something inside softly collapses at that word. She knows it when she allows herself to briefly imagine being fully seen, not as a light source, not as the person everyone leans on, but as a woman who is sometimes overwhelmed and sometimes frightened and sometimes just quietly, completely tired of performing a wholeness she does not always feel. And here is what nobody talks about. The way out of this is not as simple as choosing to be more vulnerable. Telling a woman who has built these walls across a lifetime to simply open up more is not helpful advice. It is like suggesting someone who has been holding their breath for 30 years should just remember to exhale. The real path is slower, more internal, and it begins with one question she has been careful to avoid. Not why am I lonely, because she has asked that before, but this: what do I believe will happen if someone sees me completely and still chooses to stay? Whatever lives inside that answer is where the pattern is rooted. And that is where real change becomes possible. The emotionally magnetic woman did not arrive at this loneliness through weakness or failure. She arrived here through a series of intelligent, protective decisions that once made complete sense and have now outlived the context that required them. Her warmth is not performance, her generosity is real. But the distance she maintains between herself and the kind of love that could genuinely reach her is also real, and it is doing its job almost perfectly. Recognizing this pattern does not dissolve it immediately, but it is the first moment where something shifts, where she can finally see the structure clearly enough to begin asking whether she still needs it to keep running. There is another layer to this that goes further still. What happens inside a woman like this when someone finally refuses to accept only the curated version and chooses to wait patiently for the real one instead? That moment carries a weight entirely different from anything explored here, and that story begins somewhere else. Have you ever kept someone at just enough distance to feel safe, and later realized that distance was the only thing standing between you and something real? Say it in the comments, because if you have felt it, you already know exactly what it cost you.